It started with a letter, a heavy yellowed envelope that looked like it hadn't moved in decades. The return address was from a law office I'd never heard of, in a town I didn't remember ever visiting. Inside, a formal document informed me that I had inherited a house from my great uncle Edgar, someone I barely knew existed. My mother had mentioned him once, vaguely, as the kind of relative people don't talk about at reunions. I was in between jobs and homes anyway. My lease had just ended, and the thought of a rent-free roof over my head sounded like a gift from the universe, maybe even fate. I packed my car and drove 6 hours north to Black Hollow, a forgotten village surrounded by woods so dense the sun barely reached the ground. When I arrived, the house stood like a sleeping beast at the end of a narrow gravel path. 2 stories of crooked wood and gray stone, hidden behind ivy and dead vines. The front door creaked like it hadn't been opened in years. Dust swirled in the air like ghosts welcoming me home. The living room was cluttered with antique furniture draped in white sheets, as if the house was trying to forget its past. An old grandfather clock ticked slowly, even though I never wound it. The place had a pulse, a breath. I felt it immediately. At first, it was just little things. The sensation of being watched when no one was there. A cold draft, even though the windows were shut tight. A family portrait on the wall that seemed to shift slightly every time I walked past it. As if someone in the picture had changed their expression. I laughed it off. Old houses creak, minds play tricks. That's what I told myself. The bedroom upstairs still had my great-uncle's belongings. His clothes hung neatly in the closet, though they smelled like mold and mothballs. A thick journal sat on the nightstand. Its leather cover was cracked with age, but the pages were blank, every single one. That felt wrong. I could have sworn when I first opened it, there had been something written inside. When I blinked, the words were gone. I stayed in the guest room that night, unable to sleep. The floorboards above me groaned steadily, as if someone were pacing. I tried to believe it was just the house settling, but the rhythm was too human. 4 steps, pause, 4 more, over and over again. When I finally built the courage to check, the hallway upstairs was empty, but the smell of cigar smoke lingered in the air. My great-uncle smoked cigars. My mother had said so once. In the morning, I explored the basement, thinking maybe I could clean it out, turn it into a workspace or studio. The air grew colder with every step down. The walls were lined with bookshelves, but most of the books were rotted or covered in a thick black mold. At the far end, behind a rusted water heater, I found a door, smaller than the rest. It looked like it had been sealed shut with nails, but a few were already pulled halfway out, like someone or something had been trying to get out. I didn't open it. Not yet. Something about this house pulled at me. Not in a comforting way, but like a hook caught under the skin. I told myself it was just nerves. Just an old abandoned place with too much silence. But I could feel it watching, waiting. And I was beginning to understand why my great-uncle had lived here alone, and why no one had dared to claim it before me. I didn't sleep much after that first night. The footsteps above me continued every evening at the same time, always at 2:13 a.m. Always the same pattern. I stopped trying to explain it away. The house had its own rhythm, its own heartbeat, and I had begun to live in sync with it, like I'd unknowingly stepped into someone else's life, or maybe someone else's afterlife. 3 days in, I found the photograph. It was tucked behind the family portrait that hung in the hallway, wedged between the canvas and the frame, as if someone wanted it hidden but not forgotten. It was a faded black and white image of a woman standing by the house. Same porch, same broken shutters, but the woman. She looked exactly like me. I stared at it for minutes. My mind tried to rationalize. Perhaps a distant relative, some great aunt I never knew. But even the eyes were the same. It was me, dressed in clothes from another era, staring at the camera, with a look I couldn't describe. Not fear, not sadness, just resignation, as if she knew what the house was. That evening I wandered the halls, trying to retrace the footsteps I kept hearing at night. I passed through the upstairs bedrooms, one by one. Each room was a time capsule, untouched for decades. In the last room, a narrow door led to the attic. It was locked. The key, strangely, was on the floor in front of it, as if someone had slid it out from underneath. My hand trembled as I picked it up and opened the door. The attic was low and cramped, with wooden beams overhead and a single window cracked open to the wind. Dust blanketed everything like snow. In the corner sat a small trunk locked with a rusted latch that snapped off with minimal force. Inside were old letters tied with red ribbon, newspaper clippings, and more photographs, some too decayed to recognize. One letter caught my attention immediately. It was addressed to Edgar, my great-uncle. The handwriting was jagged and anxious. "You must stop. The ritual is incomplete. If she remembers who she was, it will begin again. Bury the journal, seal the door, never speak her name." My blood ran cold. What ritual? Who was she? Was it the woman in the photo me? I raced back downstairs, grabbing the blank journal from the nightstand. I flipped through the pages again, this time under the yellow light of the kitchen. And there it was, writing. Lines appeared as if they were being written right in front of me, etching themselves into the paper, one slow word at a time. The handwriting matched the letter. It was Edgar's. He was documenting events. Entries about dreams, about hearing voices, about the door in the basement, and the woman in the walls. His final entry stopped mid-sentence. "She's not dead, she's..." and then nothing. I closed the journal and locked it in a kitchen drawer. The next day, I went into town, trying to find anyone who remembered Edgar. Most people refused to talk. They averted their eyes or crossed the street when I approached. But one old woman, seated outside a decaying grocery store, watched me carefully. "You're the girl who took the hollow house," she said, her voice like gravel. "You have her eyes?" I asked what she meant. She hesitated, then told me a story. 50 years ago, a woman named Eleanor lived in the house. She came to town suddenly. No family, no history. She was beautiful, mysterious, and never seemed to age. People whispered that she knew things no one should. Cures for illnesses, secrets from people's pasts, predictions that always came true. Then, children started going missing. No one could prove anything. But one winter night, Eleanor vanished, and Edgar, her devoted friend, was found unconscious in the woods behind the property, bloodied and half-mad. He claimed Eleanor had been taken by something, that she was not human. He boarded up the basement. He never spoke of her again. When I returned to the house, the air inside felt heavier, like the walls were pressing in. I stood at the basement stairs again, staring down into the dark. The door at the end was different now. The nails were gone. It was slightly open. A low humming sound came from the basement, faint, like someone whispering a lullaby through the walls. And that night, for the first time, the footsteps weren't just above me. They were right outside my door. I didn't open it. I couldn't. I lay awake, clutching the blankets, listening as the knob turned slowly, then stopped. I don't know what I've inherited, but it's not just a house, it's a memory. And something inside this place remembers me too. I couldn't keep pretending anymore. The house wasn't haunted in the way people usually think. It wasn't just echoes or restless spirits. It was alive. And worse, it remembered. Every creak, every cold gust of wind, every whisper in the walls. It all meant something. It had been waiting for me. The night I finally opened the basement door, it wasn't because I wanted to. It was because I had no choice. I had locked every window, every entrance, but I still woke up with dirt under my fingernails and blood on my pillow. My reflection in the mirror would blink out of sync just for a second. I would find wet footprints on the hardwood floor leading up from the basement, even though I never went down. I took a flashlight and descended the stairs. The humming had grown louder, almost like chanting now. The door at the far end swung open before I even touched it. A gust of damp, cold air met me like a breath from the grave. Inside, I found a small stone chamber, much older than the house itself. There were symbols carved into the walls, ancient, cruel shapes that made my head ache to look at them. In the center of the chamber was a circle made of ash and bone, and within it, a mirror, not hanging, not mounted, just a tall, ornate mirror, standing upright, untouched by time. The surface rippled like water, and when I looked into it, I didn't see myself. I saw her, the woman from the photo. She stood behind the glass, smiling at me, not warmly, but knowingly. Her lips moved silently, and though no sound came through, I understood her perfectly. You were me. The world tilted. I stumbled backward, breath caught in my throat. Memories I never lived began to flash behind my eyes. Rituals under a red moon. Voices chanting my name. A man's scream as he was dragged into shadows. I remembered faces, children. Fire. A door being nailed shut. I had been here before. Not as the heir, not as the niece, as the origin. The journal had never belonged to Edgar. It had belonged to me. I was Eleanor. And whatever Edgar tried to bury, whatever guilt drove him mad, he didn't destroy me. He only delayed what was inevitable. The rituals, the sealed room, the warnings in old letters, they were all desperate attempts to stop the cycle. But now, the house had what it wanted. Me. The mirror pulsed once, then cracked. A long fissure snaked across its surface. Black fluid seeped from the frame like blood, and the symbols on the wall began to glow dimly. The chanting rose into screams. I ran, up the stairs, through the halls, but the house was no longer the same. Doors led to the wrong rooms. Windows showed only darkness, even in daylight. The grandfather clock in the living room was spinning its hands backward, faster and faster. Then I saw Edgar, or what was left of him. A withered figure, standing at the top of the stairs, eyes hollow, mouth sewn shut with thread. His hand pointed toward the mirror, trembling. He was trying to stop me. One last time. But it was too late. I collapsed in the hallway, my vision swimming. The air so thick, it felt like I was drowning. The walls whispered my name, my real name, over and over, Eleanor, Eleanor, Eleanor. And in that final moment, I realized the horror of it all. I hadn't inherited the house. I had returned to it. And the house was never haunted. It was me.